Welcome back, everyone. You're listening to WSB Stony Brook. You are just listening to some of the tracks off of Queen Kona's latest release called ACROPOLIS. I'm now joined by two of the members on the phone to talk about the record and the making of it. How about you guys give a quick history and a little bit of bio of the band?
Hey, awesome. Kyle, thanks a lot for having us on. Glad to be here.
No problem.
What's going on? Not much. So, sorry about the timing here, but yeah, we're pumped to talk about this with you. So, I believe you asked a little bit about the history of the project and kind of how this originated, but you know, it had taken some time. It was really just kind of something we started doing on the side over the last few years. And Tommy and I, as well as the other guys here, we actually used to do a lot of other projects on the internet, similar DIY stuff. Mm-hmm. And with the heavy involvement of personal life and jobs and school and whatnot, college, we kind of dropped a lot of those projects and just pursued our personal avenues, and then eventually got to the point where we got into a groove of things and we figured out ways to make this work on the side. Mm-hmm. And yeah, lately it's just been just a lot of involvement and a lot of having fun on the side. It's been a blast. So it's just kind of something we decided to start doing.
It has been pretty successful so far.
Life. What was that?
It has been pretty successful so far.
I think so. You know, we're starting to see a little bit of recognition. But you know, it's going to take some time, especially in this genre, in this industry, in this community. It takes time to really get exposure, but that's fun. You know, it's slow beginning.
So one of the interesting aspects of your band is that the three of you are all vocalists. So how does the chemistry work between each of you guys, and how long did it take for it to kind of grow?
That's a good question. Tommy, are you in here?
Yeah, I can hear just fine. So the way we actually break that down is that each vocalist does vocals depending on their type. Such as me, I do a lot of the lows for Queen Kona. And one of our other vocals that we have, Tyler, does a lot of the highs. And we do that based on how well the vocals can be done, and we kind of categorize it for each type of a song that we do based on a climactics of it. Okay. And but just break down as well.
So yeah, just to add on to that, you know, Tommy, he's got those really deep, aggressive vocals, and we typically save those or tactically kind of plan where the vocal types are throughout the song. So you know, before big breakdowns or really aggressive parts, that's where we think Tommy might fit the most. And then, for example, I do some of the highs on the record, and we'll use those for more fast, aggressive parts. But you know, Jake has got these really great cleans, and we obviously save those for the more melodic, as well as catchier or chorusy parts of the songs. And Tyler, he's got like this sharp shout, so we use that to build a cadence for parts of songs where, you know, you want to have the vocal almost match the rhythm. So it's like we look at the song, we kind of get a feeling for the song, and we say, all right, how can we tactically put vocals in each song? And that's the beautiful thing about this project, is we have that ability, and I think other groups don't. You know, they don't have 4 or 5 people contributing to that.
So it's one of the aspects of Queen Kona that kind of make us unique compared to everybody else that's out there.
Yeah, we'll get more into the songwriting process later, but before we start talking about your album, how about you guys give some behind the scenes on your latest music video called The Cauldron Dance?
Oh, man. Tommy, I think you might want to throw some info and shed some light on that.
All right. So the whole thing about Cauldron Dance, it's kind of a mix-up of just having fun with what we're doing, and it's very, the plot line is just very random of it. Honestly, there's not really a strong plot to it at all. Except for the lyrics of the song itself, which I think make it so great. It's just so random, and it's just really out there. But it was so fun to do. I had a blast doing it. So did everybody else.
So did you guys go?
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of props in that video that you used. So did you guys like all go out like one day and just buy all these like toy guns per se?
Toys.
Exactly. It was just
no, I'm
no
kidding.
legit
Those
guns.
are definitely not real. No, but it's funny. It's funny that you asked about that because we really wanted to do shoot a video for that particular track, just because it has a lot of really climactic moments in it, and it's a really intense song that I think a lot of people would love. And we didn't really have a great idea for video because it's very seldom that we can all meet up together. We live quite a distance from one another, but we also, creating a video where you actually have the group performing instrumentally is tough because there's a lot of components to that.
Yeah.
For drums, for example, you need multiple angles. For every single instrument, it's difficult to get everyone in one setting and then find someone to film it. And we just didn't have that capability or that kind of time, because that's much more time consuming and much more difficult.
It gives you more content in the future.
Well, right, and it's that's something that we might get to hopefully in the near future. But for right now, we just kind of we thought the comedy sketch idea would have been fun and somewhat easy from a filming standpoint to do, and then we just kind of matched how intense the events are in the video with the intensity of the song. For example, when you get to that climactic breakdown near the last third of the song, we had the drinking celebration and slow-mo shots and stuff. I mean, it was a blast. It was really fun to make, but we were just having a good time, and we like making videos. It's fun.
All right, so let's start talking about your album, ACROPOLIS. You guys released it pretty recently. I played a couple of tracks, a little bit out of order, but can you just give the listeners who may never have heard of you, never have listened to this record, an idea of what the concept and the story is about?
Yeah, I think that's up your alley, man.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. The way that happened was kind of unintentional. Believe it or not, for this particular project, we went a little ass backwards in the concept. So we actually, when I was writing it instrumentally, I could say, the idea of having an album cover and an album name, Acropolis, came before everything else. Lyrically, conceptually, and thematically, just Acropolis stuck in my mind. And I introduced it to the rest of the band, and we sort of built the narrative around that. And, it's funny. We definitely didn't write the lyrics in order from song to song. I think it kind of started with something like Catacombs, and then some of the later tracks. But then I wanted to keep everything on the same theme and the same narrative. So we tried to figure out ways to build the story. And, why a castle? Why, all these creatures? We wanted to kind of come up with a purpose for it other than just for the hell of it, or no connection between the tracks. So we came up with this narrative that just sort of built upon one another. And really, when you break it down, the whole purpose of the theme and the connection between the tracks is it's a large metaphor for kind of being tempted by things that are dark, or tempted by things that you shouldn't be tempted to. And it's why do we have that attraction to it? It's it's kind of I don't know how to explain it the best way, but it was, that was really what it broke down to, was kind of creating this narrative around that, and then we just built off of it from there.
So with writing the lyrics, did you take any inspiration from maybe any other artists? How did you form kind of your own style, per se?
Good question. Some of the songs actually got a huge inspiration from Trevor. I don't know how to say his last name. I think it's Sternad from the Black Dahlia Murder. He's a very descriptive lyricist, and on top of that, he throws in these nuances that are just, they seem so casual and they don't seem serious at all, but at the same time, it's almost poetic. For example, in the song Lunate Famine, when you get to that heavy breakdown to the end of the track, there's a line in there, something along the lines of, he lunged at me with barrel teeth, 8 feet, oh Lord, what a beat. It's like, that's something that Trevor would have said, and it's just kind of like a subtle, almost comedic nuance in the track that was like, it definitely had a lot of influence from him. But other than that, the other songs was kind of written in a, like I said, almost a narrative standpoint, you know, and then we worked pretty hard on making things rhyme, and making it somewhat poetic. So, but, you know, honestly, I wouldn't say most of the other tracks have, influence from other areas. It was just kind of, us trying to be unique.
I usually ask this question to artists that kind of write concept records. Do you find it hard to kind of implement your own opinions or feelings like in the songs?
Do we find it hard to implement our own
like ideas,
or,
yeah, instead of just say like writing a story?
You're saying instead of kind of mimicking something else, you're asking if it's more difficult to kind of come up with things on our own?
To like show like your own opinions, your ideas, your thoughts, your experience in this like cinematic story.
Sometimes. I mean, I think it's difficult to come up with something completely without the influence of others, especially from an emotional standpoint too. But part of what came behind writing this record lyrically were the instrumentals. If it's one thing you'll notice about each track is that they have this sort of melancholy tone to it, like this satin, this darkened tone, even on the songs that are soft, like Sonnet of the Vampire. Like, they all kind of have that darker, more death metal-y sound to it, or like a no hope almost vibe. And we surrounded the lyrics around that. Like, they kind of just, we listened to see what the emotions were behind the instrumentals and built it from there.
And that's what kind of mostly drove us with that. We just kind of went one direction and just kept going and didn't stop.
So one of the biggest changes that I kind of heard on this record as compared to your first release, Desecration of the Universe, was kind of that more addition to kind of this atmospheric vibe and kind of like all these kind of undertone production details that kind of like added to that. Also kind of like instruments going by themselves, just like less going on. So was that a bigger focus for you guys, trying to make the album kind of like a more environmentally, like when you listen to it, like you feel like you're there per se?
Yeah, great question. I think a lot of the writing for this record actually started with the guitars, right? So we kind of spun everything else off of the guitars. And in terms of trying to make it atmospheric, that was definitely an objective here because it had this dark narrative behind it. You know, we wanted to make it feel like this wasn't just a compilation of a couple of instruments. Like, we wanted there to be moments of climax, moments of settling and calmness, because they coincide with the song and the lyrics. So, but yeah, I think going back to a little bit more of a better answer to that question, or direct answer, the more atmospheric moments were definitely intentional, because it's like our objective isn't to just get you to headbang, it's also to just kind of get you to really absorb all that is going on at the same time, while simultaneously delivering emotional, like, roller coasters.
It was a way for us to better connect with our listeners and to keep them fully involved of what they're listening to.
Kind of going off that fact, what were maybe some small production details that people should listen out for in this record? Whether it's their first time listening to it, their fifth time, whatever it may be.
Right. Instead of taking it at face value, I would say that the more production-oriented things, there aren't much on this. I would say the cleaner guitars, but if you notice too, on this particular album, there isn't a ton of layering, and what I mean by that is, what you hear is what you get. You know, there isn't a lot of sections of the album where there's guitars on top of guitars with additional, like, melodic nuances, and there's not a lot of that on this particular album. So I would say you can mostly take the album for face value. From a production standpoint, I would say the biggest takeaway, or the thing to kind of keep your ear out for, is just the vocal transitioning, right? The dynamic that we have and why. Like when you listen to all these different vocalists, you know, why is Tyler here, or why is Jake here, or why is Tommy here? And it's just because we have this dynamic. We have crazy lows, mid, high, clean, and everything. Like that's, from a production standpoint, that's definitely the biggest thing going on in Acropolis.
Anything you guys want to try with, experimenting with in the future, sound-wise?
Yeah, actually a lot. And, you know, there's, we really just began to peek the surface here on Acropolis, but the funny thing is I would tell you not to get too wound up in that sound, because we've been writing a lot lately for multiple future records, and in all honesty, they sound absolutely nothing alike one another. You know, our next round, our upcoming release is a lot different in terms of writing, and like, yeah, you'll have some similarities in terms of like how we transition and how we build the climactic song, but there's a lot more of what I was getting at earlier, is guitar layering. You know, more. There's more going on at one time. It's more melodic. It's also, we tried a lot of different things instrumentally too, in terms of subgenre. So there's more polyrhythmic aspects. There's more gent and metalcore aspects, and even hardcore. And drumming wise, it's a little bit more calmed down. You know, there's not as much blasting and like basic 4/4 setups. It's like this is much different, and a little bit more on the progressive metal side of things, as opposed to deathcore or death metal, or, you know, whatever subgenre is going on right now. But we're trying a lot of different stuff.
So there's some questions that I skipped over. I have a bit more time because the next DJ isn't here yet. So can you guys go into detail a bit more on the songwriting process? Does it start out with the guitars, whether it's MIDI? Again, do you start with the lyrics first? So again, what is your band's process?
So, good question. Definitely starts out instrumentally, and everything else kind of follows suit. So it begins with like a guitar writing process, MIDI drums, just kind of drafting everything up together to get an idea of what we're looking at, and feel for the vibe, and like, hey, can we get this here? Or, you know, what if I change the chorus to sound like this instrumentally, or whatnot? I mean, there's a lot that goes into it after building the initial demo, but it's usually a demo. So in the demo is MIDI drums, guitar, and like rough guitars, just like out of tune shit. Or I'm sorry, pardon my French, but out of tune stuff, and it's not as clean and concise. But
and then we kind of feel our way through the production of it, of how we would want our vocals done.
Did you make any?
Right.
Oh, sorry, keep going.
No. He hit the nail on the head. Once the instrumentals are somewhat, you know, the demos are done from like a completion of a song standpoint, that's when we listen to it. You know, we listen to it, we feel the vibe, like how does this song sound, and then we come up with the vocal dynamic and lyrics. Because I think that's how it should be. Like, I think vocals shouldn't really be added until you really understand what it is you're vocalizing about. You know, listen to the instrumental and get a feel for the emotions behind it.
Did you guys make any changes as compared to the first release? Or was it pretty similar?
In the writing process?
Yeah, or the production process?
It was the same process. The only difference is we added a little bit more vocal involvement, but you know, the second Acropolis and the first EP were pretty much the same. But this next record is going to be a little bit more involved from a lyrical and vocal standpoint from everyone else, and I think you're definitely going to hear some difference. But the main objective in all of these records, and maybe not so the first EP, but definitely in Acropolis and absolutely moving forward, is music, right? We don't want to make songs anymore like a lot of the bands and artists that are out nowadays. we don't want to make songs anymore that are just a compilation of really cool sounding things.
Just
and that's what we want. We want rhythm, we want melody, we want music. Like, I get it, like the polyrhythm, tapping and sweet picking and stuff, and like, that's really popular nowadays. But at the same time, like, if it doesn't have melody, it sounds kind of pointless. You know, it just sounds like you're listening to like an audio file that somebody threw together, and it sounds really neat, it sounds really cool. But you know, we're definitely going for more music.
See, that's why I think that kind of gives concept records a little bit to like help with that fact, is just because it helps you kind of like flow through track to track to track, and you can kind of go dynamically one way and dynamically the other way. Either way, it fits in together.
I think you're right.
So before we end it, one last thing. When creating the concept record, were there any cliches that you were trying to avoid with the story or the way you were writing it?
Just not making it corny. And like sometimes,
yeah, we wanted to make sure that it still sounded unique to our listeners, and we just wanted to focus so much on that aspect that we want to kind of get away from anything that might have been, I guess, a huge turnoff, if you will, with anything that sounded too much like anything else that has been done, or maybe something just similar to something else, or a little corny, like Vinny just said.
All right. Well, thank you guys for joining me to talk about your latest release and a little bit about your music video. How about you guys give everyone who's listening where they can find your music, keep up to date with everything Queen Kona?
Sure. Please follow us on Instagram, because that's where we do a lot of our promotion now. You know, our studio videos and demos and whatnot, teasers. It can all be found at Almighty Queen Kona on Instagram. And then we do have a Facebook too. You can search Queen Kona and find us there. But keep an eye out. Our latest record is in the works. We should have a new single very soon. Mm-hmm. And it is a freaking banger. It's awesome. And we're really excited for everyone to hear it. It's unlike anything.
All right, well, everyone, make sure to check out Queen Kona on Spotify, Instagram, Apple Music, every single platform. Go look them up. Check out their latest release. And everyone, stay tuned for some more music. Thank you guys again.
Thank you. To the man, Kyle. Thanks for having us. Take it easy.